All right, there it is, recording. So, welcome back. It's November 5th. It is November 6th in some parts of the world. We're going to do some more problems in data sufficiency with upfront stuff. We got still a few of these from last time. So, and then we'll probably switch back to some verbal stuff starting next time. So we'll see here. So it kind of just depends on whimsy. We got some more problems where the work is up front. Remember, what we mean by this is there's a substantial amount of stuff that you can do before you get to the numbered statements. There's not really a formula for when that's true and when that's not true. But remember that there are two numbered statements and there's only one prompt. So basically, you should always at least briefly think about whether this is the case when you're looking at any data sufficiency problem. Pretty much any data sufficiency problem at all. When you look at any data sufficiency problem, just ask yourself, is there work that I can do? Is there anything I can do up front? Because if there is, I mean, as far as time savings goes, I mean, if you can do the work up front for the prompt, then you only have to do it once instead of twice. You know, but a lot of the time you can do the same work in response to each of the statements, but then you wind up double doing a lot of the work. So just ask yourself that. I mean, today's problems, of course, there is, because it's the whole point of today's study hall, but that is the deal. So, okay, here's the copyright notice. These problems are all from the free GMAT prep software, copyright GMAT. Again, we can only use problems from the freeware. We cannot use paid GMAT material. So when you submit things, please take note. All right, let's do a problem here. How about this one? Remember where the multiple choice answers are found. That is where they are found. So data sufficiency answers, we kind of presume that you know what those are. So go ahead and give it a shot. All right, we should be wrapping this pretty soon here. So there's a surprisingly large number of people who don't have answers. If you're stuck, then stop what you're doing. That's all the time management is. That's it. That's all it is. Okay. Let's go ahead and pick answers to this. If your name is Nurit or Antoine or Gurleen or Mary or NP or Romit or Stephanie, let's pick a thing. Okay, I can't really force your hand, but you should definitely be picking an answer by this point. So let's discuss. The most common answers that people are picking here are C, cat, and D, dogs. Let me just have a word with the people who are picking C here. Okay, here's a problem that we're not going to do. We're not going to do the problem that's about to appear. But what I want you to do is think about picking C here. Just think about it. You'll see the problem in a second. It'll show up momentarily. Apparently, it's like the world's biggest screenshot. Okay, yeah, this problem. Think about picking C on this problem. I mean, you might even laugh out loud when you think about picking C here. At least you probably should. If you pick C on this problem, what is all that you're doing? You're just, you know, adding stuff. Yeah, 1 plus 4 is 5. I mean, what you should do is you should say, is this ever going to be that simple? It's not gonna. I mean, there are actually a whole bunch of Thursday sessions that are on this exact topic of when answer choice C is a trap. Let me go ahead and look up a couple dates of these sessions, because we had like 11 people picking choice C here. To the problem, we're going to put it back on the board in a second, but choice C is not a thing that you should pick here. Here are 2 archived session recordings that you should watch if you even thought about picking C on that last problem. Here they are. You might want to check these out. I don't know why these screenshots are showing up so huge. But this whole C trap idea is a very big deal on data sufficiency. Basically the deal is if choice C is this easy, it's going to be wrong pretty much every single time. So just keep this in mind. For more details on this kind of thing, check out those sessions below. But if choice C just hands you all the information in the problem, like all the things, and if it is way too easy, then don't pick it because it's going to be wrong. I mean, this is the best example ever of this. I mean, 4 plus 1 is 5 is not how you're going to do this stuff. But in general, and I mean, notice that way too easy, I mean, that sounds like it's some matter of opinion, but it's actually not. I mean, way too easy is an objective criterion. Because remember, there's only one authority here, which is GMAT and the official guide. So if you don't feel like you have a sense of what way too easy is, then just go to the first 10 or 20 problems in OG data sufficiency. And then anything that is much easier than those is wrong every time. Because I mean, the first 10 or 20 problems still are not gimme problems. They're not that easy. I mean, they're easier than other problems, but they're still substantive. Like, you still have to do stuff. You still have to, I think the very first problem in the whole data sufficiency section still deals with things like squares and absolute values. So, I mean, it's definitely a lot above the level of 1 plus 4 is 5. Okay, let's think about picking C here. Do we want to do it? Remember, if C hands you everything, all the things, and is way too easy, then don't do it. I mean, here, right, in this problem, there's only 2 sizes of milk. There's a half-gallon size, and there's a quarter-gallon size. So if you're picking C, this would just be like, let's do some arithmetic. It would just be like, let's add this all up. I mean, this would be 30 gallons, and this would be 90 gallons. So C here would just be 30 plus 90. Don't do it. Smiley face, if that makes sense, because there were quite a number of people who picked choice C on this problem. Like lots and lots. So especially if you did pick that choice. Smiley face. Okay. All right, now let's talk about this problem. So, remember the theme of today's work that you can do up front. There it is. There's the picture of people doing upfront work on a building. So, along with this dashingly handsome cardinal right here. What can you do with this? Before you start looking at the answer choices, before you start looking at the numbered statements, what do you think you can do with this? Any ideas? What type of organizing the information? You can do that. You can name some variables. All right. So let's do that. I mean, let's say that H is the number of half-gallon jugs. Hat H for half, and let's say that Q is the number of quarter-gallon jugs. So let's see what the deal is there then. So what are they telling us here? That the store sold a total of 300 cartons of milk yesterday. What can you do with that? What is that in terms of H? Is that it's not H? Yeah, H plus Q is going to be 300. So what this means is you have an equation, and what's more important to notice, because this is data sufficiency, what's more important to notice is what this means in terms of you having things and then having other things. Like this means that if you have either H and Q, then you have both of them. This is the key upfront realization that you can do here. And then if you have both of those, then it is 0.5H plus 0.25Q. Although you don't even really have to do that, because if you just know what H and Q are, then you will definitely know how much milk you bought. So therefore, if you had either of H and Q, then you have the solution. There it is. So how about that, right? So if you do that up front, then the statements are very much reduced to very little work at all. Because the store sold 120 quarter-gallon cartons of milk. I mean, this gives you Q. So therefore sufficient. And 90 gallons, so H is not 90, but you don't really care because you know that you know what it is, right? So it would, in point of fact, it would be 180, but you don't really care because it's just, you have H. This gives you H. Also sufficient. So this is going to be D like dog. Any questions about the way this problem works? I mean, the other thing about this, apart from the too easy sort of thing, one more thing about this. There's one more criterion. In fact, it's probably the most important criterion. One thing about the quant problems on this exam, and if you've done more than a handful of these in your life, you're going to know this. But remember, you should always use all the information that is given to you in the problems. I mean, this is the one thing about these quant problems that's very much not like real life. Because in real life, you know, it's very rare for you to just be handed exactly the facts that you need to solve a problem. But you should use all the information. So like the thing that is most insidious about picking C on this problem is like, look how much stuff you are ignoring. This is probably the biggest deal about it. If it ignores this stuff, that's the biggest warning sign of all. Because like if you just do 1 plus 4 on this problem, then apart from the fact that that's like 1,000 billion times too easy, even if all I gave you was that, you would still have 1 plus 4. Right? So like if you do 1 plus 4 on this problem, what you're saying is, oh, I don't care about the circle, and I don't care about the triangle, and I don't care about the 2, and I don't care about Q, and I don't care about the right angle, and I don't care about any of that stuff. That's not auspicious. Nope. We should use all the things. So like the other thing about picking C here is that what are you not using if you pick C here? Like if they just gave you those pieces of information, then what do you not have to use? Yeah, you don't have to use that equation that's in the prompt. So again, there were 11 people who originally picked C here. That's a lot of people. So, I mean, this is one of those things, it's just one of those check yourself kind of things, right? C, not only is it, whoa, they're just handing you all things, but if you pick C, then you never have to use this information. This is bad. Don't do it. Okay, I mean, this is a thing, right? I mean, in fact, this is such a consistent trait of these problems that they actually went out and invented another section of problems where you don't use all the information. That's called integrated reasoning. Right? Like they invented that part specifically because this part you just use all the things all the time. So smiley face if this makes sense, right? Especially the C pickers. If you're not using the information when you pick C, then whoops, it's not going to be C. It's not how it works. And I mean, this is actually the entire reason why data sufficiency exists. Like that sounds like a bold claim, but because multiple choice, you can't really do this. You can't really punish people for finding too much stuff, right? Like if I wrote a multiple choice problem and I just gave you these pieces of information, then you'd be like, oh, great, I can solve the problem. But if it's data sufficiency, then you can like reward the people who realize that this is all I need if I have this. And you punish the people who are just like, blah, 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 they're handing me all the things. So this is the reason why this whole C-trap thing is so pervasive is because it is basically the main reason why they invented this entire problem type. So, I mean, check out these study halls, these archive recordings, check them out. Because the higher you score on quant, the more of these traps you're going to see. Because they show up as difficult. It doesn't mean the problems actually are hard. It just means that lots of people will pick the C answer every time on these problems. And so they rank as hard because lots of people get wrong. So the deal is the better you're doing at quant, the more of this you're going to see. So keep in mind. All right, let's jump to another problem. Let's do it. Hold that up right there. Boom. Do it. All right, we should probably pick a thing in the next little bit here. Remember that time management means I know when I'm stuck, and when I'm stuck, I quit. That's all that time management is. You don't really want to have to complicate it. Second half of the alphabet is some serious all-stars here. I think everyone whose name starts with P or later has this problem right. Interesting. So second half of the alphabet. All right, let's take a look at this thing. So, as far as work that you can do up front here, what you can do here, as with all word problems, you can organize this kind of thing up front. So, or at least figure out what it is. And sometimes these go hand in hand. Figure out what it is that you would need to actually solve this problem, right? So organize or figure out what you need. And again, a lot of the time those are hand in hand with each other. Like as you organize the problem, you'll figure out what you need. So there's an X here. I mean, you can call that X if you want, although you don't necessarily have to. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, you don't need to use given variables. Unless there's a reason to. I mean, there's a whole bunch of equations involving X, then it's probably not a terrible idea to use X. So here, this just means that there is a constant donation per car. So if you don't like defining a variable for that, there's not necessarily a great reason. I mean, as long as you know that, as long as you have constant donation per car. So what's going on here? Like, what would we need to find this quantity? Total amount that was expected to be donated. Exactly, right? We need number of cars by dollars. So, you know, I mean, this X is not necessarily useful to us here, but the expected total is going to be the expected donation. It's the donation per car times expected number of sales. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you would want to take a little bit of extra time to make sure that you do correctly. Because notice that you have expected figures and you have actual figures. And you want to be careful not to muck that up. So let's do that. So for statement 1, we're going to have a certain amount of information. For statement 2, we're going to have a certain amount of information. And then if we use both statements together, then we'll have a certain amount of information. Okay, so statement 1, I mean, there were actually 4 or 5 people who thought that statement 1 was sufficient, but it's not, because you need a dollar amount, and this is just a quantity of cars. So, I mean, if you want to fill this organization in, I mean, dollars per car donated is a bunch of question marks times 500. So, well, that means this is still a bunch of question marks. I mean, again, this is not, there were 5 people here out of 30-something who thought this statement was sufficient, like who picked A, alligator, or D, dog. So, if you are one of those people, what that means is that you probably just have to write more stuff down on the paper and look at it with your eyes. I mean, if you've gone to enough of these sessions, you're probably sick of hearing me say those words. Write it down and look at it with your eyes. That's what you have to do. You got to write stuff down and look at it with your eyes. Because if you write this and you know that you need the sales times the dollars per sale, it's going to be very clear that statement 1 is not sufficient. So smiley face there, if that makes sense. Again, I'm especially looking for smileys from the people who picked A, alligator, or D, dog. So let's see, smiley faces. Smiley faces, okay. Statement 2, what's the deal there? What can you do with statement 2? And what can you not do with statement 2? So a pretty solid number of people thought this was sufficient. So what do you do with it? Like Antoine typing here. So this means that the actual number of sales was, let's see, right? The total amount actually donated was $28,000. And notice that this was not X dollars for every car expected. I mean, so maybe what we should do here is amend this organization so that it's just total is dollars per car times sales. And then what we can do here is we can make rows for expected and for actual. And so this is for statement 2. And I mean, don't be afraid to amend your chart here accordingly, right? So this is actual and this is expected. So then here we go with, I don't know why those are so thick. And then the goal expression would be this, right? What was the total amount expected to be donated? So that's this. This is the goal. This is the thing that we want. So, all right, let's see what we got here. And then you can just reproduce this chart if you need to combine the statements later, although you can just import the data from statement 1. All right, let's take a look. So the total amount donated was 28,000. There we go. Actual. So where did you get this stuff? A couple people, remember we're only talking about statement 2 right now. I mean, maybe you're jumping ahead here a little bit, but this is all we know. I mean, we can define a variable for the stuff with 16 more than expected, right? We can just make a variable for that. So 60 more cars were sold than expected. So some number was expected, but then the actual sales exceeded that by 60. Now the deal is, this is the thing that we want. I mean, what you don't want to do here is do a whole bunch of algebra if you can see that it's not going to go anywhere. Because if you have this, I mean, if not, if you can't see that, then you can just do it, right? This would just be 28,000 over x plus 60. But you can only do the algebra far enough to see how this is going to work. So see, we don't, I mean, what are we going to do from here? We don't really know. I mean, this is the same expression for the donation amount, so 28,000 over x plus 60. Because the donation amount is some constant amount. I mean, this is not different between expected and actual. So you can do this kind of work. These are equal. And if you want, you can even do the multiplying. So it's 28,000 x over x plus 60. Okay, so that's not sufficient because that's going to change depending on what x is. But in a sense, this is still sort of upfront work. It's just upfront before combining the statements, even though it is after you're using the prompt. So this is not sufficient because this is going to vary with x. So now we combine the statements. If you've done this, if you've filled out this chart, then there's very little extra thinking that has to be done here, because you have a total of 500 cars expected to be sold, and so that is x. 500 cars expected. It just gives you that. So that, if you combine the statements, then boom, I know that x is 500, which means that everything is sufficient. So in terms of efficiency, there were a lot of people who got this problem correct, but who took a really long time to do it. So, I mean, in general, just when you review problems, just make sure that you're always aiming at some shape or form of improvement. Like, when you review problems, I mean, if you got the problem incorrect, then, of course, try to spot or try to isolate exactly why you got the problem wrong. In data sufficiency, this will usually have nothing to do with math. In data sufficiency, this will usually be goals or organization or other like executive skill type stuff. And then, of course, make a plan, right? So if you didn't organize this and got lost, then make some sort of concrete plan as to how you're going to write stuff down next time. But even if you got the problem correct, I mean, efficiency is still a thing here. You know, because a lot of people, I mean, some of you got it right pretty quickly, but a lot of you got it right in a sort of weirdly long amount of time. So if you got the problem correct, then think about efficiency. think about organization and efficiency. Especially efficiency. Like, think about how you could have done this. Faster is not the right word, but with less waste is a better way of thinking about it, which I guess is the definition of what efficient means. Like, how could I have done this problem with less waste? Where that means effort or time. So, like, for instance, if you spent a lot of time on combining the statements here, that is waste. That is inefficiency. Because if you take statement 2, if you just do this work, I mean, this is not effortful work. You're just propagating it through a chart like doing Excel. This times this is this, so this divided by this is that, and you get the point. So, and if you do this, then you realize right away that if you plug in C, then it's going to work because it gives you X. So yeah, this is C, because when you combine the statements, you get a value for X, which you didn't have in statement 2. But this is the big deal, right? This is why some people hit a ceiling in like 46, 47, 48 kind of quant. Because they don't do this, like they're satisfied with, oh, I got it right. And efficiency is the next step, and people don't think enough about efficiency. And so they wind up racing the clock all the time. Not because they're slow. I mean, I'm slow. I'm much slower than you guys. But I don't waste effort for the most part. I think that's the difference. So that's the usual difference between high 40 scores and 50-51 scores is efficiency. So just make sure that you're going over that. Any questions about this problem? Neato. Okay, that's another one. What about, let's see, this one. Right there. Do it. Okay, let's pick a thing. If you don't have an answer yet, I would. I could be wrong, but if you don't have an answer yet at this point, I would hypothesize that whatever you are doing is probably not genuine progress at this point. But, okay. So, I mean, I don't normally publish responses here, but there's a pretty big diversity of these. I mean, let's talk about these 2 responses here. And then let's also talk about this response here. Let's talk about A, B, and D. Because what I have to say is, So let's have a conversation about this. Like, the point is, it should not take you very long to deal with the individual statements in this problem. And if it does, then there are some fundamental things, some fundamental changes that you need to make. So, like, this is one of those things. I mean, there are also entire Thursday sessions that I've done on these yes, no data sufficiency type of questions. Let's see. Maybe I don't know. I can't find the dates right now, but this is something that I've done a lot of. Is because the yes/no type of problems cause people issues because people don't know what they're trying to do here. So if you haven't seen those previous sessions, here's a quick rundown. But when you see a yes or no type data sufficiency problem, and it's kind of ironic that we're calling it yes/no, because the first thing that you should do is get rid of the words yes and no forever and ever and ever. So, in other words, you should translate the words yes and no into specifics. And then after this point, never ever think about the words yes and no ever again. Do not ever think about them. If you are thinking about the words yes and no, then that is the problem right there. So, I mean, what does a yes to this mean? The question is B positive? So a yes answer means that you can do what? It means that you can make what is equal to yes. Interesting. Oh, I guess yes. Okay. So a yes answer means can you make B positive? And the no answer to this question would be can you make B not positive? So can you make it 0 or negative? Okay, as soon as you realize that these are what these mean, then you should never think about the words yes and no ever again. Because I mean, again, if you've seen enough of my recordings, then you're going to know what this deal is all about. But the point is that yes and no are not goals. I mean, you can't try to make yes and no happen because they are not things. You know, but you can't put a line in the coordinate plane and have it say yes. You can't come up with numbers that say no. I mean, these are not things. On the other hand, you could definitely come up with numbers that make things positive and numbers that make things negative. So this is the single biggest, most important step. Like, these are actually goals. I mean, again, just think about how important this is to actually have something that you are trying to do. Like, if you say, I want to get no, I mean, this is the problem. This is why you're having trouble with these things, because getting no is not really a thing. But if you say, I want to make B 0 or negative, aha, this is an actual goal. You see the difference. I mean, it's the same problem that people have in a lot of other areas of life, where they don't make progress because their goals are not really goals. I mean, it's kind of like if someone says, I want to eat healthier. I mean, the problem is, again, that this is not a thing. I mean, you will fail if that is your goal, because that's not a goal. That's not a thing. You can't measure whether you're doing that. Instead of it's something like, I want to reduce my overall calories by 10% and cut my carb intake in half. I mean, this is an actual goal. And I mean, if you have goals like this, then you are much more likely to actually achieve something because you have goals that are actually goals. I mean, this is not a goal. Pretty much will fail. This is actually a goal. I mean, I know I'm kind of, being very redundant here, but this is not just the GMAT. This is all of life. I mean, if you have goals that are not goals, then surprise, you won't fulfill them. Yeah, I need to be more careful about blah, 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 that's not a goal. Yeah, like if you lose your wallet a lot, I need to be more mindful of my wallet. Oops, that's not a goal. When I wear these kinds of clothes, the wallet goes in this pocket. When I get home, it goes on this table. When I go to sleep, it goes here. Those are goals. You can do those. You'll actually improve the behavior. That's how it works. So, here's what we do. Then, what it helps to do after this is to just make a table. Make 2 rows for these possibilities, and then columns for the statements. And then if you can, and then just check off if you make them happen. So, I mean, again, you've seen my study halls before, then you've seen this device. But can you make B positive gets a row? And can you make B 0 or negative? That gets a row. And then statement 1 gets a column. Statement 2 gets a column. And then if necessary, both of them. There you go. And the deal is that if you make this device, then you have goals, right? You want to try to check both boxes in a given column. And if you can check both boxes, then that's not sufficient. And this is the single biggest thing you can do to improve these yes-no data sufficiency problems, is to get rid of the words yes and no and to translate them, make it specific. This is a thing. So, okay, I mean, statement one, I mean, we know that we have a line that goes through the origin, and its slope is negative. And that's basically all we know. So, statement one, it goes through the origin, which is 0, 0, and it's negative slope. And then remember that A, B is any point except 0, 0. So, I mean, here, right, let's just draw a picture of it. So here's a line with negative slope. There. Goes through the origin. Here's the origin. I mean, see, now, if you have these goals, you're going to realize right away this is not sufficient. I mean, can you make B positive? Yeah, well, because if you have this picture, right, then, because this means that neither coordinate is 0. So you're not going to get 0 here, but you can think of that along the way, right? It's not going to change the outcome. So, but what this does is it just keeps you from picking the origin, basically. But I mean, can you make B positive? Yeah, you can. There it is. B positive. Can you make B negative? Yeah, of course you can. So there it is. Boom. So we can check off both boxes, right? The purple possibility checks off that box. The blue possibility checks off that box. And again, just notice the value of this organizational device, because I mean, there were lots and lots of people who were calling this statement sufficient. I mean, there are actually a very large number of them. So, but it should be pretty clear that it isn't. But making this kind of device is the single biggest thing that you can do to accelerate that understanding thing. Any questions about this? Statement 2. I mean, in statement 2, we don't even know anything about the line. I mean, all we know is just that this is not a point where there's a 0 coordinate. So, I mean, you can draw it if you want to make sure there's really a line there. But notice that you just know that A, B is basically a random point as long as two things are true. As long as neither A nor B is 0. And then, of course, you need to satisfy the statement. But other than that, it's a totally random point. So let's take a look. Yeah, and then, I mean, you don't know that the slope is negative here, so you should probably, think about it not being negative. But, all right. I mean, A less than B, you can test cases here. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me, at least, would be a point like, I don't know, 1, 2. So that works. And there's a line. Oh, that line is so big. Why is it so big? Let's make it less big. All right, so that checks off the box where B is positive. And then as row meet mentions, because we have goals, right? I mean, if you don't, there were 7 people who called this statement sufficient. That's a lot of people. If you call this statement sufficient, it probably just means that you didn't really know what you were trying to do to prove that it's not sufficient. This is why you should make this device. Really, you should do it. Because once you have made B positive, the point is to make it, you can't make it 0 because that's precluded here. So your goal is to make it negative. So you know that you want to make this negative, but you also have to make A less than it. So you should make A like even more negative than B. So -2, -1, Romy points out is a point that works. It's a thing that you can do. Sure it is. -2, -1 is a point that works. Yes, it is. And then that's auto-wide. I mean, you can make that go through the origin if it, tickles your heart's fancy to do that. So, and that's got a negative coordinate. So check the box. So now we're going to combine the statements. So we need to have a negative slope. So actually neither of these drawings is any good anymore, because these drawings have positive slopes. So I'm just going to be running out of screen space. Let's just kind of kill that. And let's white over it. Okay, let's combine the statements. So we need to have a negative slope. But we also need the x-coordinate, which is A. It has to be less than the y-coordinate, which is B. So negative slopes are going to look like that. I mean, they're going to look like that picture. I mean, they might be more gentle slopes and they might be steeper slopes, but they're all going to go down from left to right. So basically, there are just two possibilities here. I mean, there are points where B is positive and A is not. And then there are points where B is negative and A is positive. So again, if you write down these goals, you're going to realize what happens here, right? Because this, if you need to satisfy that, then that is something that just isn't going to happen down here. But that is very much going to happen with every single point that is up here. So trying to X out a diagonal line is probably not the best idea, but hey, right? So there you go. I mean, you're going to only get positive values of B, and this is going to be impossible. So this is sufficient, and that's C like cat. Would kill the argument, but you can't be in the third quadrant if you combine the statements. Because if you're combining the statements, you have to have a negative slope and you have to go through 0, 0. So if you have both statements, then, I mean, if you have statement 1, you're not allowed to be in the third quadrant. Because that'd be positive slope if you did that. Again, this is why you should draw pictures, because that way you don't really have to. This seems wrong problem. I don't know what that means, but the problem is definitely not wrong. I mean, okay. How come A is less than B? Because that's a given. I mean, these are facts. I mean, remember how this must be new. I mean, you must be relatively new to this problem type. Because a lot of people who haven't done too much of this yet are thinking that, like, these are things they have to prove. And that's not how this works, right? You have a prompt, And then first you use this as a given fact, and then you use that as a given fact, and then if necessary, you use both of these as given facts. But remember that you are never trying to make the things up here true. This is not how it works. What is not? I mean, yeah, it's possible, right? Because AB is not all points. AB is just one point. Like, I mean, it could be that point. If it's statement one, it could be that point or that point. It could be any points. It's not every single point on the line. So, right, AB is a single point. So that's why that's not an issue. What's in the chat box? Because the point 0, 0 is not AB, and that's fine. I mean, AB is a point that is somewhere else on the line. But this is a single point. This is not a generalized point in the line. This is one place in the coordinate plane. So there it is. Okay. Again, this is probably just growing pains with data sufficiency. It is a weird problem type. People are not accustomed to it. I'm guessing that's what's going on here. But just make sure that if that is the case, make sure that you work patiently enough with problems that are easy for you. I mean, that is the biggest key to success, is to not try to jump into hard problems right away. Make sure that you can do problems that you find easy and boring and whatever, and make sure that they become instinctive before you start jumping into stuff that is more involved. Okay, let's do another problem. Let's see what we got here. How about that? Right there. Do it. All right, you can be taking a thing by this point. Okay. Do you remember what we had to say about choice C not using this stuff? Uh-oh. There were 8 people who picked choice C. If you pick C, I mean, let's just, let's have a little heart-to-heart about that. If you pick C, what's going on here? Well, if you pick C, all you have to notice is that it's less than 17. I mean, there's only one number less than 17 that does both of these things. So, I mean, if you pick C, then you know that it's an integer less than 17. But you know that it is also greater than 10. And you know it's power of 2. So you would know that Q is 16. Uh-oh. You understand why this is uh-oh, right? Like, what is this whole problem about? Like, what do you, yeah, it's about remainders. I mean, if you had a single value of Q, then you wouldn't even have to think about remainders, because you'd be like, dude, it's a single value of Q, so it's a single value of R. This means that you're not even using this. Like, if you pick C, you don't even have to think about remainders at all. Oops, don't do it. That's not a thing. Remember, you're going to have to use the things that are in the problem. I mean, this sounds like a very elementary piece of advice, but if you are not using the stuff in the problem, you are screwed. Don't do it. Like, even if you do not have blessed clue number one how this problem works, you still know that it is A or B or D. I mean, also, there were a lot of people who picked E. I remember what E means. I mean, what does E mean? That's what it means. Okay, this is like the best illustration ever of how you should not understand these problems and of how you should understand these problems. I mean, sorry to make examples of people, but this is exactly what you should not do. Do not think of it in this way. Because this is not a goal. I mean, you cannot try for I can't solve it. I mean, this is not a thing. It's not a goal. I mean, this is sort of like, oh, I am going to eat healthier. This is not a thing. You cannot try to make this happen. And so if this is your understanding of what choice E means, it's no wonder that you find this stuff hard. This is what choice E means. It means that there are two or more possible answers. Like, this is actually a concrete thing that you can make happen. Because, I mean, again, if you know that this is what E means, then it's really obvious that the answer to this is not E. Because E would mean that there are multiple values. I mean, again, if this is what you think E means, then this understanding is not obvious. But if you realize that E means there are two or more values, I mean, think about what this would mean. Like here, E means that Q is a single number, but somehow there are still two or more values of R. I mean, this is clearly not a thing. So just make sure, if your understanding of not sufficient is that it means I can't solve it or I don't know, get rid of that. That goes in the garbage can. Like, that is the single thing that makes data sufficiency much harder than it needs to be. I mean, insufficient does not mean I can't solve it. Insufficient does not mean I don't know. It means I can get two or more values. I mean, one of these is concrete, the other one isn't. This is a very important difference. So, it's not C, it's not E. It's not C because you just know they don't roll like that when they write these problems. And it's not E because E is absurd. I mean, if you had a single value of Q, then you would not have multiple values of R. So, I mean, smiley face if this makes sense. Again, you got to make sure your goals are concrete goals. Yeah, I mean, ideally you should go through life that way too. I mean, you shouldn't say things like, I'm going to eat healthier, because that's not a thing. You should have goals that are goals. Okay, let's discuss. Don't do it. Don't pick C. All right. So yeah, you're going to have to actually use the remainders, ladies and gentlemen. And again, we've also had entire study halls where we talk about this kind of thing, but once you know how this works, then you should have expectations, right? You should expect to find the remainder without finding a specific value of Q. Because again, this is why they invented data sufficiency. They invented data sufficiency to make sure that you just focus on the goal that is actually the goal. So, okay, I mean, remainders you can't really do algebraically, so we're going to have to test cases. So, You're welcome. Thanks for coming. We pick Q, and then we find R, which is the remainder of Q divided by, of 17 divided by Q. All right. That's how we got to do it. So let's just do it. What are the Q's that we can pick for statement 1? Yeah, just 11 through 16, right, as far as we need to. So Q, if Q is 11, then 17 divided by 11 is 1 with remainder 6. And this is the thing that matters. We don't care about the 1. R is 6. If Q is 12, then 17 divided by 12 is 1 with remainder 5. So again, see, you're done right away. If you know what not sufficient means, it means 2 answers are possible. So this is not I don't know. This is I made 2 things happen. So that's what not sufficient means. Okay, that's it for that. Let's do statement 2. What are the only Q's that we're allowed to pick in statement 2? Yeah, and there's actually no ... in between there. It's just 2, 4, 8, and 16. So 2, 4, 8, 16. Because when you put the 3 dots, it implies that there's more numbers in between there. But I'm assuming you don't think that. So yeah. All right. This is a notation thing. I mean, your point is obvious. So, okay. We have 2, we have 4, we have 8, and we have 16. Again, if we get 2 answers, then we just stop. But this is it. This is the end of the line. So 17 divided by 2 is 8 with remainder 1. 17 divided by 4 is 4 with remainder 1. Again, all we care about is the remainder, not the quotient part. 17 divided by 8 is 2, remainder 1. Oh, look at this. 17 divided by 16 is 1 with remainder 1. Boom. This is sufficient. There's only 1 possible remainder. Again, this should not surprise you. I mean, if you know how data sufficiency works, then you should be fully expecting this result. So you get the thing you want, but you don't find everything. In other words, Q still has multiple values, because this is why data sufficiency is a thing. You should expect this. And this is the single biggest thing that you should do, is like just step back and look how these problems work on a very broad point of view. Because I mean, especially the higher up you go on the scoring scale, the more it's going to be like this all the time. They're going to have a very specific aim, and you're going to find it, and that's all you're going to find. So there it is. This is sufficient. So overall, B boy, because second statement's sufficient, the first statement's not. Any questions about this? Not there. We might have time to do one more. I think how people are typing. Okay, it's just thanks. Because those are the only Q's that are powers of 2. So, well, remainders you can't do algebraically, so you don't really have a choice. I mean, if you try setting this up algebraically, then you should quit after like 5 seconds, because you should realize that you can't do it. So, I mean, you can think about whether you can do it, but then you should very quickly realize, oh, can't do it, and then you just start guessing cases. That works. I mean, 2, 4, 8, and 16 are the only things that are, yeah, 2 to the 1 is 2, 2 to the 2 is 4, 2 to the 3 is 8, and 2 to the 4 is 16. I mean, this is the same point of everything else in this quant section, which is if something doesn't work, just quit. Just stop doing it. All right, we got one more. Yeah, I mean, the goals are goals, very much so. Okay. The discussion of this is going to have to be very fast at the end, but just so that we can stop on time, because I'm sort of on a tight schedule here, but there should be enough time to just run through it and then run through an explanation and then just grab. Give it a shot. Yeah, the thing is I'm not saying anything right now. All right, we should pick a thing. Let's try to actually do this whole discussion in 2 minutes so that we can call it quits and scram. No, yeah, well, I wasn't talking before. That blue note I typed without saying anything. So, okay. So as far as upfront work, I mean, this is the kind of thing that you should recognize that you can do this upfront. Because even if you don't, I mean, even if you can't just make the entire list in like 2 seconds, you should still realize pretty quickly that there are not going to be a whole lot of 3-digit numbers that do this. So, I mean, what you should realize right away here is that that's supposed to be a colon. I'll fix that in a second. I mean, there will be relatively few numbers that do this. So you can just list them all up front and then be done with it. Because this is the efficiency thing, right? If you don't do the listing up front, then you're going to have to make separate lists for each statement, and then if you have to combine the statements, then you will have to possibly make a third list. I mean, basically, I mean, the principle here is a very simple principle, which is it's better to think of possibilities just once than to think of possibilities 3 times. 2 or even 2 or even 3, depending on whether you combine the statements or not, right? So the deal is, I mean, 14 is 2 times 7, and that's what it is. So if you have 3 digits, then the digits have to be 1, 2, and 7. So just make an organized list. I mean, there's no reason to be like factorial fun stuff because factorial doesn't help you here because you need to know what the actual numbers are in the list, right? So just go from smallest to biggest. So 1, 2, 7, 1, 7, 2. Okay, 2s, and then 7s in front. There's the whole list. By the way, reality check. If you cannot make the above list in 15 seconds or less, you need to practice making organized lists. That's the kind of thing that you should be able to just do. And I mean 15 seconds only because you're handwriting it. Like if you're typing it, it should be 10 seconds or less. It should be pretty much automatic, right? So, okay, that's it. So statement 1, well, I mean, there are 3, there are actually 4 odd integers there. So, I mean, as long as you have 2 or more, then that's not sufficient. So this is not sufficient. Okay, statement 2. So you notice how much more efficient this is because we made that list up front. Otherwise, we would have to keep thinking of possibilities every time. There are 4 numbers less than 700. So that's not sufficient. And then together, well, there are still two numbers that are odd and less than 700, which are 127 and 217. So still not sufficient. And this is E, elephant. The point here is to notice the efficiency of this approach. Like, because we made this list up front, which, by the way, should be effort list. If it is effort full, then that needs to change, and the way you get that to change is to practice it. It's boring, but useful. Once you've done this, I mean, honestly, all three of these are probably going to happen in like 20 seconds. Because you're looking at it. You're looking at an exhaustive list of possibilities. Yeah, there are. There are still three numbers. Yeah, 127, 217, yeah. I mean, as long as you know that there are two, you're good to go. But you are right, there are three. So, there it is. I mean, if you practice in a way that is aimed at increasing accuracy, then you will increase it. But if you... Dude, I make mistakes like that all the time. I make executive mistakes all the time. I mean, I can't subtract to save my life. Like, if you ask me what 36 minus 9 is, I'll tell you 25 every single time. I mean, I am the kind of person who dots T's and crosses I's. I am not even sort of detail-oriented, so not surprising that I do that kind of stuff. But yeah, you can call me out. It's good. Okay, I gotta run here, ladies and gentlemen, but thank you. We're probably gonna do some verbal next time. We'll see, but that's it for today. That is all we got. Thank you, and good afternoon, good evening, good night, good luck, and